Caleb Wilson looks every bit as advertised, and Seth Trimble, boy, he just dominated the second camp game.
This is Tyler Hansbrough, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Monday, June 30th, 2025. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. You're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks so much for making us your first listen or watch to get your Monday started the best way possible. Special shout out to all the everydayers here with us, all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord and our Locked On Tar Heels insiders. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Check it out today. Joining me is our guy, Riley Davis from Sleepers and all sorts of everywhere that you can find him. Just go follow him on Twitter and you'll see all the wonderful things he's doing all the time. And it's great to have him on, especially because I'm coming off a weekend of being at camp with my son, and I am hoarse as a toad? I don't know what you say. Anyway, I am hoarse, and man, that's great, but it's good to be together. Basically, where we're headed today is Riley and I are going to unpack the second camp game scrimmage that happened on Friday afternoon. Big shouts to Tar Heel for Real on YouTube for providing us all the footage as she, I guess we don't know, did last year. And so if you didn't check those out, make sure to do so. I will link this like in 6 parts. I will link all those in the show notes so you can go see them. Same setup, Riley, is session 1. Blue team was made up of alums, thankfully a better group of alums this time, and the 3 incoming freshmen. And then the white team was the 3 returners and all the incoming transfers minus Luka Bogavac. The blue team wins this thing 70-58. Let me quickly give the rosters. And Riley, I'll just start big picture and ask you your biggest picture takeaway. On the blue team, joining the freshmen of Isaiah Dennis, Derek Dixon, and Caleb Wilson were Cam Johnson, teammate, by the way, of Drake Powell, Tyler Zeller, Luke May, Justin Jackson, JP Tokoto, and of course, Garrow Brooks and Christian Keeling. Great to see him pop up on the radar. On the white roster were Henri, Veesaar, Jarin, Stevenson, Seth Trimble, Kyan Evans, Zayden High, James Brown, Jaden Young, and Jonathan Powell. If you go watch the footage, good luck, because there's like 4 dudes out there wearing number 3, and it's a whole thing. Riley, aside from the number confusion, what's your biggest takeaway from this scrimmage game?
Well, to that point of the number confusion, I'm like, how does the white team have 3 number 3s and I think at least 2 number 1s? Meanwhile, Elijah Davis is just chilling with his lone number 6. I'm like, the coach's son with preferential treatment there. And also, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Tar Heel for Real at the top. Tar Heel for Real is a legend in my book. Hit me up on Twitter if you ever want to just make an appearance on Sleepers. We can work that out because that's I respect you in the hustle. But moving toward the actual game, can we just get Caleb Wilson and Henri Veesaar on the same team? That's point one. Secondly, this better be the last time we see Caleb Wilson not starting in a UNC game. I don't care if it's a scrimmage. I don't care if it's an exhibition. I'm good on seeing 30-year-old Luke May getting the start. I'm good on like some of these wash dude. Well, sorry, that sounds mean. I love Luke May, Tar Heel legend for sure. One of my favorite UNC players of all time. Of course, gave us the most memorable shot of the 2017 run. It's meant as no disrespect at all, but we need some new blood. Let the young bulls rock. And I need Caleb Wilson. I want him playing 30 minutes from the jump. I want to see him with Henri Veesaar stat, just because even from like a fit perspective, you could see this in stretches in this scrimmage where, I mean, Caleb Wilson is such a gifted passer. Like he's had some nice finds on the break. He had a really good dish to Garrison. I want to say it was either, I can't remember if it was in the low post or the high post. I've only watched the scrimmage one way through first, but Garrison missed the lay. But you can tell like Wilson's passing ability that'll come at that 4 spot, I think will be so conducive to like a really fun style that you could do with Henri Veesaar, who himself is a gifted passer, whether you have Veesaar feeding Wilson on lobs off the short roll, or whether you have like Caleb at the top of the key, feeding Henri in high-low action. That's what I'm wanting to see because, I thought there was a couple times, and this might get into one of our takeaways regarding Seth, but with Seth being one of the primary ball handlers, Seth's still not really a passer. I would say as much as I love him when he's aggressive, when he's attacking, he's not really looking to get guys involved in much. And there was a couple times where Henri had Luke May sealed and no one got him the ball, or times where he was rolling hard to the hoop and just wasn't fed. And I think as much as I liked what I saw out of, it was almost like Memphis exhibition style Seth. And as much as I like what we saw out of Caleb and Jonathan Powell, Veesaar is the one who I think when you look at the players on this roster, he's by far the most accomplished at the college level at this point. Unless I'm forgetting anybody, I think of any transfers or any returners, he's the only one who has been dominant in a power conference league. And I know you might look at his numbers last year and say, okay, he averaged 9 and 6. It's not exactly dominant. He was really good in Big 12 play. I think he averaged like 11 and 6 with 2 blocks and 1.5 assists, something like that in Big 12 play. And his defensive impact, if you look at Arizona's on and off numbers with and without him, they tell the tale of like a really good rim protector, even if the block rate's probably not quite as high as you want it to be for someone his size. But I think he's a really, really good defender to where that's where I would say like, I think he had 3 points in this one. Not panicked about that. Carolina just has to figure out how to get him the ball and make the most of him as a pick and roll weapon.
Yeah, and I to that point, Riley, I think that's, in a scrimmage, it's going to be so guard dominated that a big who's not necessarily always creating his own offense probably isn't going to get a ton outside of like screen and maybe rolling and getting a lob or something. And yeah, so I feel like I've seen in a lot of various groups that you and I are both in, a lot of people being like, Veesaar hasn't done anything in these scrimmages. Well, it's not conducive to what he does. Wait till we see the organized team offense structure, and then we can start to make those calls on where he's at. But you're so right. Like with Caleb, like, yes, Seth is the leading scorer in this scrimmage, and we'll talk about that in a second. But good grief, Caleb Wilson, everything he's able to do is on display in bold relief, man. It's just the athleticism, the vision, as you were talking about, that comes with his height. I mean, mightn't we to see some of that classic Carolina big to big passing, as you were just saying? That, man, that would just be a nice little breath of fresh air. But I think the two of them will fit really nicely together there in the front court. And I am very excited to finally get a glimpse of that. I don't know whether that'll happen in a blue-white setting because they might get divided up. So it might not be till the BYU exhibition till we see them starting in the front court together. What Riley, for right now, what is it about Caleb? Maybe some of the plays, some of the highlights that are impressing you?
I mean, the dunk on Veesaar was sick. The steal and dunk off the inbounds that he got on Zayden was sick.
That ended the game.
Yeah, right. Oh, I kind of forgot that. It's like because you don't see a scoreboard in Tar Heel for Reals videos. It's like, anyway, yeah, the dunk that ended the game, and I'm struggling to think of the last time we had a front court presence as athletic as Caleb Wilson, who could handle a little bit. You could say, with all due respect to Bryce Johnson, first team All-American, national runner-up, made a Final Four. It almost feels disrespectful to say Caleb Wilson's the most athletic front court player we've had since Bryce Johnson, just because Caleb Wilson's a projected top 10 pick at this point, and Bryce was never that in his career. Sure. And that's again, not to, and I think sometimes it just feels different because, like, I mean, basketball has changed a lot since 2016. That was before the small ball era that was ushered in by the Warriors that eventually ushered back in. You're seeing more like two big lineups, but every big across the NBA, and I think you're going to see it trickle down to the college game. You already have with teams like Florida and Kentucky last year. You're seeing bigs who can dribble, pass, and shoot, and that's like 2016 hoops is a bygone era. But I think if I was thinking in terms of most explosive leapers who are so fluid and coordinated, then Bryce Johnson's probably the last time we saw someone that athletic in the front court. And when you factor that in, just with the incredible basketball IQ, I mean, yeah, I think Caleb Wilson's going to have a monster year.
I think that's a great comp, right? Like if Bryce Johnson were playing in this day and age, I think he very well could do a lot of what Caleb Wilson could do. It felt like Caleb and JP Tokoto had a good connection. They hooked up a couple different times on lobs. JP looking ahead, passing.
JP's got to be jealous. He doesn't have bounce like that anymore.
Oh, good God. He looks stocky, man. I'm like, he's not as slender as he once was.
Right.
Man, Caleb had that nice, somebody pitched ahead and he just kind of caught the ball in the post. Jarin Stevenson was on him, got him up in the air, and just had a little duck under and dunk on him. I was just seeing some post move, he's got a lot, man. And I'm really interested to see, is he going to have some point forward to him? Going back to what you said there, just a lot of really good possibility with Caleb Wilson. And I can't wait to see. I mean, this is, July 1, basically, we're looking at, and we're talking about him in this way. And so, man, everything Caleb Wilson doing is on display there. But it's Seth Trimble that was the leading scorer in this game. So that's who Riley and I want to talk about next. What is it that Seth is doing right now? Are we going to get the pre-head injury Seth next year or post-head injury Seth? What's that going to look like? We'll talk about that in the point guard battle, all coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about FanDuel, summer sports are in full swing. And whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are out at the beach getting sunburned. You can use FanDuel to track your favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. So whether you're placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet right into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like you're always part of the action. Looking ahead to next year's national championship odds, the Tar Heels are plus 4,000. Maybe you believe in them more than that, go ahead and take it. But if you want what's at the top, Purdue and Houston have the best odds right now at plus 1,000. Are you new to FanDuel? Great. New customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if that bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right, Riley, I know Caleb Wilson has Tar Heels fans all sorts of riled up. Forgive me that I did not intend that pun in any way. But I want to talk about Seth Trimble, who was the leading scorer in this game. Per Inside Carolina's data keeping, which I'm grateful for whoever it is from Inside Carolina doing that. But we had Seth coming in with 26 points, 10 of 17 from the field, 3 of 5 from 3, 3 of 3 at the free throw line, 3 boards, an assist, 2 steals, and a turn. What is it about Seth that you like what you're seeing? I really appreciated your point in the first segment about you love the attack mode, but Seth's looking to get to the lane and finish. What are you liking from what you see from Seth, or maybe not liking as well?
I thought he looked really good when he was attacking in transition. That was a big part of his game as well. I thought, there were times last year and really kind of throughout his career where he'd get the ball in the open court and you wonder why he wouldn't always go up the strongest, especially considering his athletic profile. I thought that didn't look to be an issue in this game. And I just thought he was knocking down some tough shots, had some tough finishes around the basket. Seemed like when he saw JP guarding him, he was like, oh, this is my older brother. This is food. Let me go eat. And knocking down threes off the bounce was really cool to see for him, and just wanting to continue to see maybe another leap that is in store. And, I think it brings up the question for maybe what I would say both what is his role and what is his ceiling. And as we hash out the point guard battle, I'll kind of talk through what I think the pecking order should be, to where I think he's ideally the third or fourth option on this team. And I still don't want him I still wouldn't really want him bringing the ball up the court a ton and initiating the offense. Maybe in spurts it could work, but I think he's going to be best when the ball is swung to him off a reversal and he's able to attack a closeout or something, or make a decision off of that and find ways to get into the lane or knock down spot up jumpers. That I think is the best role for Seth when he's not really trying to do much playmaking. And it's not to say he can't, I would expect maybe he could get to 1.5. I would still probably expect him to be under 1.5, 2 assists per game or something. It's not like he is completely void of feel and a playmaking ability. Right. But I just think his best trait is, getting downhill. You see that gear that he has, the burst, and putting him in positions to do that the most. And I don't know if that means, well, we'll see if it leads to any schematic twist from Hubert and the staff, because you don't really I wouldn't really want Seth just planted in the corner. Maybe you play him more on the left or right wing and see what he can do in those positions in terms of spacing. But yeah, that's I think when he is able to hunt his shot a little more freely without the pressure of Ian Jackson, RJ Davis, Elliot Cadeau in the backcourt, where it's like, oh, you might only get 20 minutes this game. You got to shine here. It felt like that at points last year where Seth was in there. He got tunnel vision, and it led to bad shot selection. It led to some misses off of shots he shouldn't be taking. I think maybe where he's more acclimated in his role, where it's like you are one of the senior leaders, you are a starter. You don't have to worry. Well, you probably should say you don't have to worry at all about losing your spot, because you want to at least keep the competitive spirit alive. But, we've seen through 4 years of Hubert, he really trusts his veteran guards. And I think when you look at Seth's role increasing the past 3 years, I think you're going to be hard pressed to not see him at 30 minutes, at least 30 minutes a game. And hopefully some of that comfort of what his role is allows him to play a little bit based more on his instincts and less pressing, there were times last year where it seemed like he was pressing way too much.
Yeah. Going back to what you said about his threes, it was funny after the first scrimmage. I think he was 2 of 7 from 3. And there was this crazy overreaction of oh, well, Seth's just the same old Seth. And it's like, okay, let's remember what he did his sophomore year, what he was doing last year, 38% before his head injury. Riley, perhaps the cruelest part of this scrimmage, he hit this 3 over Tyler Zeller on the right wing in almost an identical spot to the Austin Rivers shot that won that game at Carolina over Tyler Zeller. Now that was on the opposite end of the floor, on the other side, but it was in that same right wing, a little bit toward the baseline there. And I was just like, oh, it just was a gut punch all over again.
Dude, that was a nasty shot though. I think he hit a little jab step and pulled back.
Yes, he did. He did. Absolutely, man. It's like Seth doing that, kind of hunting that, right? Mm-hmm. I was in on it. He also had a nice dunk off the wing. But what was interesting to me, Riley, is he had the next possession, he had this little floater, which I was trying to pull back in my memory banks, if that's new in his bag or if we've seen much of that before. Obviously, we know that's something RJ worked really hard on, and I wonder if that's something learned by a guy that recently signed a little contract with the Lakers. We'll see what happens there.
Well, per sauce kill, Elliott wasn't allowed to do that, so it's big that I want to get the listeners all fired up with some anti-Elliott propaganda.
I appreciate that. Everyone is screaming now as we do so. Yeah, really. So you talked about the point guard side of things, Riley. I'm with you. I have said all offseason, I think that Seth is at his best when he's not having to initiate, so that he's free to just run wild. Right. As you said, yes, he's going to need to be point guard sometimes and initiate sometimes in some spurts. But I think it is best for the team because of what it frees him up to do if someone else is handling that. It was interesting to me that when they were both on the floor at the beginning of this scrimmage, as well as later when things were reset and rekindled, that it was Kyan Evans, the one bringing the ball up. And so that, at least early would, lead me to say that Kyan Evans is going to be your point guard. I saw some people saying oh, Kyan is booty. He didn't score and it's a scrimmage, whatever. Right. When we see things like this, they're at least early indicators of what's going to happen. Riley, if you were starting, had a point guard cemented in today, what would you go with?
Okay, man. I probably would still give Kyan the nod. I think he was recruited to be the lead guard and play close to 30 a game. I think he was paid like someone who's going to play 30 a game. My scrimmage overreaction is he's going to eventually be the sixth man who's in there to knock down threes and be more of a combo, play off of Seth, play off of Luka, play off of Caleb, and go back into an ancillary role like he was at Colorado State. Ideally, you never know how long how long you get players in this era. He could leave after this year, but ideally you could maybe develop him, because sometimes you see those up transfers take 2 years to really get acclimated. Maybe he could be your lead guard your senior year. And again, this is all going off of a small sample size of 2 scrimmage games and sort of what he's done at this point in his career. Where last year at Colorado State, yeah, he was the point guard in spurts, but that offense ran through Nick Clifford.
Sure.
It's a slight overreaction, but it's also looking at his whole body of work. I just want to be clear. Like I was really high on the Kyan Evans addition. I think he's a killer. I love that he's had some big moments in the postseason. So I don't mean to be overly negative here. I did think he looked a little small on the court. I didn't think he really looked 6'2", at least from the scrimmages, which gives me a little bit of pause, but that's not a death knell by any stretch. But what I could see, what could end up happening is if he doesn't acclimate right away, if it becomes clear in the Kansas game or something that his learning curve's a little bit steeper than we anticipated, then you probably play through Luka and you play through Caleb Wilson and you let both of them handle and initiate as much as they can handle it. And Isaac, it's a pet peeve of mine when people say like, oh, just play like the insert national champion or insert NBA team, where it's like, if it was that easy, everybody would do it. Not everybody has the personnel to execute.
Yes.
However, go back and watch Florida. I feel like it's like so dumb to say it, because you don't want to put those expectations. This Florida team was awesome, but when you look at someone like Walter Clayton, who's not a true point guard, and when you look at how much of the offense they ran from Alex Condon and Thomas Houck initiating either at the top of the key or in the pinch post, like I was thinking about this with like Luka's not really a point guard either, but he can initiate an offense. And even thinking, you go back to that play that Florida had down the stretch against Texas Tech, where they're trailing by 1 with just over a minute to go. They run that little pinch post action with Clayton and Thomas Houck. Houck hits Clayton underneath the basket on a really good pass. Texas Tech snuffs it out. Clayton pulls it back out and drains the step back 3 over 2 defenders that put him up for good. In an ideal world, you can run that type of 2-man game with Luka and with Caleb Wilson, because Wilson's such a gifted passer, or Veesaar, who's a very gifted passer as well. Yeah. And that's where, once again, with the caveat, it's kind of dumb to say just do what the best team does, because if it's that easy, everyone could do it. Like, I'm hoping HD is grinding some Florida Gators tape to see like just how to use skilled bigs who know how to pass and how to use bucket getting guards. Because I think there's a world where you could run a lineup where Luka's your de facto point guard. You have Seth at the 2, Jonathan Powell at the 3, Caleb at the 4, Henri Veesaar at the 5. And it'll work if you have good ball movement and you take advantage of the playmaking from both Veesaar and Wilson. And even Luka can do that a little bit. But of course, you really want him in there to like create his own shot and to knock down threes.
Right. And everyone would have to understand their role and play advantage basketball, right? And do the correct things. That's the key to that, which they might not get in November, but maybe by January they've got that sorted out. That'd be really interesting to see what happens. On the Kyan Evans thing, it's like, yeah, he looked short because Isaiah Dennis is 6'5", like these dudes are big. Derek Dixon, 6'5", and so he's playing with a bunch of bigger dudes, and so that didn't really shock me. But the reality of it was like, yeah, he looks short compared to some of these dudes, but he plays big. Like he had he got a rebound where he was up. I was like, okay, I see you kind. So we'll see what happens with that. Riley, you mentioned Jonathan Powell, and that's where I want to go next as we begin to on the back end of wrapping up the show here. Is Jonathan Powell had a spurt early in this game where he had 8 points on 3 possessions. I want to look at what your thoughts are on what he might contribute to this team, particularly as Luka ain't here yet. And how might Jay Powell just fit right on in? We'll talk about that to wrap the show in just a second. All right, Riley Davis, Isaac Schade. We're talking about Carolina's second camp game to kind of wrap up the camp season for Carolina. And we've talked about some of the big players in this thing for Seth Trimble dominating, Caleb Wilson, everything he did. I want to talk a little Jonathan Powell. I think he, coming from West Virginia and having just played 1 year, I think a lot of people might be undervaluing or overlooking him, Riley. He had a stretch I just mentioned a second ago. He had a quick 8 points on 3 straight possessions for the transfer and returners team, a deep left wing 3, which came off a nice screen from Henri Veesaar that had Garrow Brooks and Cam Johnson all messed up. On the next possession, Cam has to close out because he had just drained that 3. He attacked the closeout, finished at the rim, and then he hit a 3 on Cam on the next position from the eastern tip of the North Carolina logo. Jonathan Powell scoring 8 points on an NBA dude, and not just any rando NBA dude. Cam Johnson, Riley, what did you make of Jonathan Powell's performance?
Yeah, I was amped up when he fried Cam Johnson on that three. I love Cam. Cam is, I mean, what is Cam's contract right now? How much money is Cam Johnson making a year to play NBA basketball?
I will tell you as you keep talking.
Okay, because Cam, it's important to, like, I know there's the narrative UNC doesn't produce pros, haven't had an all-star since 2007, haven't had a top 5 pick in 20 years. I love
blah blah blah.
Love how that was making its rounds. Yeah, ton of fun. Love being reminded of that. However, it's worth noting, there's a chance the Nets might shop Cam Johnson to a contender, and he could step onto a playoff team immediately and play starter minutes. He's really freaking good. And so that's not even a knock on him to say Jonathan Powell fried him. It was just, I was like, dang, this dude has some confidence and he has a swagger about him that we lacked last year, I think.
Well, 22 and a half last year, by the way.
Cam Johnson made 22.5 million last year.
That per ESPN's roster, yes.
Yeah. Jonathan Powell said, don't matter. I'm splashing a 3 in your face. Like, I think that speaks to Powell. You know, he was used almost exclusively as a spot up shooter at West Virginia last year. And I didn't watch him. I never watched a second of his high school tape, so I don't know what all he did before West Virginia, but I'm curious to see if he expands the bag a little bit or if he is, you know, ideally you run him off of some screens, whether, you know, that like the flare screens that we ran a ton for RJ and Ian last year, something like that. Or if he's more so just like lethal transition sniper like we saw Cormac do in stretches. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he does any more ball handling than he did at West Virginia. But one of my favorite things about him, like, you know it with him fearlessly taking a 3 over Cam Johnson. You can see it if you watched him at West Virginia last year. He chirps, he showboats, he celebrates, and that's what I want my shooters to be like. You know, I don't want the K Tyson types that don't talk at all, that don't celebrate. Like, I need a dude who's going to come out there, and if he hits a 3, he lets you hear about it. And I think that's going to give, you know, this team the edge and the swagger it needs. Like, I think we might have talked about this the last time I was on. A lot has been made about Carolina's offseason with Hubert feeling a little bit of warmth, a little bit of heat on his seat, and $14 million roster, and how people saying we overpaid, which I'm sure Carolina did overpay on some guys. But I see the framework there to be a really good team. And I hope that's not just offseason hope, because I'd like to think I've been able to, you know, be critical, or even I've been called negative before when it comes to UNC, and I'm not trying to overcorrect on that, but I just see a world where the roles fit together really nicely, and there's good complementary pieces, and we might just have a superstar in Caleb Wilson.
Dude, seriously, like, yes, like, I'll just let that sit and ride because I'm right with you on it. One other note I wanted to make on Jonathan Powell. You talked earlier about that dunk that Caleb Wilson had that ended the game. Right before that, the possession that, because that came off of Zayden Hyde trying to save a ball out of bounds when JP Tokoto had tried to score over Jonathan Powell. Powell stopped his fadeaway, and that was the save. The possession before that, Cam Johnson tried to score on Jonathan Powell to end the game, and he couldn't either. So back-to-back possessions to end the game. And I don't know, you know, that's obviously a very small sample size, but again, this is a 6'5", 6'6" dude willing to step in and defend an NBA stud, and JP Tokoto, you know, I know he's not as athletic as he once was, but able to do these things, Riley, to step up. And so, man, I find myself more and more enamored with what Jonathan Powell is going to add to this team. Riley, we've talked, you know, several guys, but not everybody. Any other takeaways or big thoughts from you about personnel or big picture stuff or anything at all from that game?
I think Isaiah Dennis, I'm not going to say he's going to surprise or even really have a big role this year. I just think he looks good. Like, when he's on the court, I think he looks pretty good. And he had that one little mid-range shot he hit off the bounce. Of course, I think he had a turnover maybe like 2 possessions later where it's like, oh, yeah, there's that freshman. There's like, you know, he's still a freshman. Yeah. I think he got double teamed and turned it over. But just size, decent athleticism. And I think he shot 37% on the EYBL circuit, to where size, athleticism, and shooting, that's a pretty good way to get you on the court. And who knows what it materializes into this year. But yeah, I just think between him and Derek Dixon, for one, I think Jaden Young might be hard pressed to get the bench guard minutes. He's going to be, I know he's the vet, but, you know, hasn't played on good teams despite playing like in a bad ACC. Like, I think both those freshmen could ultimately usurp his minutes. We'll see. I mean, I know he's physical. But yeah, I would like to see either Dixon or Dennis have a moment maybe in the blue and white game or the BYU exhibition to really show like, okay, this is the future here. We got some good long-term pieces lined up who might surprise this year. But I would say with Dennis especially, it just looked like he belonged out there.
That's a good word, man. And to your point, like as I start thinking about the minutes, you know, you look at those three freshmen, and then you look at who was on the white roster with Veesaar, Stevenson, Trimble, Evans, Jonathan Powell. That's not even including, I keep wanting to say Luka Doncic, Luka Bogavac. And so that's 9 dudes already right there that I think are probably your top 9. And so as you said there, then that, you know, what does that leave for Zayden High or Jaden Young or James Brown? And so it's going to be interesting to see how Coach Davis cuts down to his kind of 8-dude formula he likes to get to, or 9. And I don't know. I'm really intrigued to see what happens with all that.
I am too. I think if I had again, like these things never really work out how you plan, but part of me almost thinks that like we probably see Seth, Luka, Caleb, Veesaar all 30 minutes plus, maybe Kyan more in the 20 to 25. I think Jonathan Powell looking like he's going to get 25. Jarin maybe 15 to 20, maybe give or take, depending on how Zayden High looks. But I would guess, and then I get either Dennis or Dixon getting those back, the first guard off the bench minutes, and then probably High some spot minutes as the backup 5 to where I think ideally you probably want to have that the top 7, I would guess would be in some capacity, like Evans, Trimble, Bogavac, Wilson, Veesaar, Powell, Stevenson, and then probably High as the backup 5. But even with High, like with Stevenson's versatility, you might see High play like 7 minutes a game or something. And then maybe there's space for like Dennis or Dixon to get 5 to 10 minutes. But like I kind of like I would say I like the strategy of playing your top 8 guys the most minutes and then having that 9th guy to give you a little added flexibility. But I think come tournament time, you probably don't want to play more than 8 guys with the 9th guy getting spot minutes, you know?
And hopefully by that point, they've figured out their rotation in a really tight way. And I would expect that to happen. They've done a good job of narrowing that down each year so far. Riley, it was great to see basketball being played in the Smith Center at that level. Again, shouts to Tar Heel for real for being a dude or a dudette. I guess we still don't know. And being there for us all. We salute whoever you are. Thank you. Come out of the shadows one day. Riley, same to you, brother. It's always good to get together and talk and laugh and talk Carolina hoops. And man, I'm so grateful for you, for your insight and everything you bring to the game, man.
Appreciate you, man. Thanks for having me on. Always a lot of fun to come on the show.
All right, gang, make sure you go check out all of Riley's great content. You can follow him at Riley_Davis3, and that'll help you find all the good stuff he's doing and follow it on from there. If you've not subscribed to the show, please make sure you do so you don't miss a second of Locked On Tar Heels. If you haven't joined our Discord, we'd love to have you in there. That link is in the show notes. Absolutely free to join. And if you've not become part of our Locked On Tar Heels insiders and you want to go next level with the show, man, that's the place for you. That link is also in the show notes. Great way to help support the work we're doing. Y'all, it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll be back tomorrow to talk that non-con schedule that was finally fully released. But until then, peace.